Alright, so listen, we're going down and down to the depth, deep of the king of the keys of the east and the west. Castle crowns, backs, east, gifts, truth is still on our chest. Oh my God, thanking Yahweh for another study session for scholars, for the rock, and the deep, what a blessing.
Down, 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 deep, dive, dive, down, 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 deep, dive, dive, down, 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 deep, dive. Down, 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 deep, dive, dive, down, 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 deep, dive, dive, down, 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 deep, dive.
Shalom,
Yes.
Shabbat Shalom, it is. Welcome to another study session with your scholars who are in the deep. I am so grateful to have the beautiful psalmist say to my right. I'm grateful to have Joseph the Dreamer. He's on my left. He's on your right. And here I am, the bronze. We are all sitting in the seat of the rabbi tonight because we have a lot of information to go through. Man. What is happening in the world right now? Joe is trying to do a double dip. He's trying to watch. He's trying to watch, and he's trying to.
I'm trying to send it in.
You're trying to send it in to your people.
There you go.
Because we have a lot to discuss tonight, and a lot of people had a lot of questions. Joe himself, said he's been getting harassed for the last month with people trying to figure out what's going on in the world. I mean, if you look all over in Europe, in Canada, in the Philippines, in the Caribbean, it's like the world is set on fire.
Yes.
Now, we're going to talk about everything tonight. We're going to recap the U.S. election, what happened in the U.S. election, what the surprises were, was it still on the timeline. We're going to talk about all of that tonight. If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the Deep.
Yeah.
We are so pleased to have you. As I said, this is Psalmist Say. This is Professor Joseph Coleman. I am the Bronze. And as always, we don't do this broadcast alone. We couldn't do it because there's a lot of work that goes into it. So we have our technical producer. Her name is Sana. And we have our audio engineer. His name is Aaron. We're grateful to have you guys on set with us tonight. Thank you very much, guys, for your participation. We also have a team of, we call them the team who has the gifts of help, okay? Because it's a spiritual gift as well. We've got Professor Coleman's two of his relatives. We have his wife, Nicolette, and then we have his son, JJ, Joseph Jr. Yes, so clapping. And then we have our resident chef, who also is the one who provides the water, the food, the tea, the chocolate. Her name is Mama Gigi. This is salesman. We've got a full house making sure this happens. The last time we were on, we talked about the Bahraini president.
Yes.
Right after the episode ended. I'm talking about as soon as we got off the air, we had people trying to figure out what was going on. We were in what we call the Bahraini dance, right? We talked about these three who were potential Bahraini candidates, and then it whittled down to two of them. And so right after the episode, I had some Democrats call me, and they said, LeBron, we want you guys to tell us who's the Bahraini candidate. Is it Kamala Harris? And because that's who we want the Bahraini to be, Kamala Harris. Then we had the Republicans call us, and they said, LeBron, you guys are so vague. You didn't tell us who it's going to be. We want Usher Vance to be the Bahraini candidate. And so I said the same thing to each of them. I said, and when I say Democrats and Republicans, I'm not saying people who are aligned with the party. I'm talking about people who wanted a certain candidate from the party to win the election. I said, as I said in the episode, we're not really focused on who wins the election. The most important thing is when Congress turns 103.
Yes.
That being said, we do have preferences. We're human beings. We want to see certain things happen. But at the end of the day, Joe said he's one of them, right? Yeah, we're human beings. We want certain things to happen at the end of the day. But it was too close to call. We had too many Maharanians in the race. If we only had one, then it would have been obvious. Everybody came out with Maharanians after we said, what needed to be done in order to win the race. So I guess they're listening to the deep, which is a good thing. Now everybody just needs to get saved. Amen.
Amen.
But here's the thing, and how did I get to that? So this was the focus. Congress turns 120 on January 3rd, 2027. So that's the date, and that's 2 years away. So we're looking forward to what happens when Congress turns 120. But what we did was we walked through this timeline, and we're going to go through this timeline again. This time we're going to laser guide you through the timeline so you can see exactly what happened in this election.
We're going to hold you by the hand.
We're going to hold you by the hand because, the question is the timeline still right?
Yes.
There's the timeline predicting what we saw. Did the timeline say this is how the election was going to go? We're going to go back into the timeline, and we're going to investigate to see what's going on. Why? Because, as we said, the world is on fire. Literally. So in California, you've got a state of emergency. They've got fires. They've got the bird flu. They've got natural disasters, earthquakes happening. The governor, Gavin Newsom, he said, that's it. I'm throwing my hands up. State of emergency. So we've got California. We've got France. And all this stuff happened right after the election, by the way. You've got France, who fell into a total debacle. You've got Assyria. Well, Syria, it borders ancient Assyria. But you have Syria, who's now in a full-blown civil war right after the election. You've got the Bahamas.
Yeah.
You've got politicians throwing the mace out of the window after the election.
Custom officers on strike.
You've got all custom officers on strike. It's like the world, someone just flipped the switch and said, everybody just go ballistic. And that's what we're seeing. Then you've got France, they're in economic turmoil with the sanctions that they believe will be coming down from Trump. And so their government is now splitting. You have people who are resigning from office. They're saying, we're not interested in this. In the Philippines, you've got the vice president who hires an assassin to kill the president if she gets assassinated. So now has a jaw open. Yes, all of this is happening right now. You've got Germany. 2 days after the U.S. election, you got Germany, the coalition, it just collapsed. And now they're going to be going into snap elections in February, I believe. So there is a lot of stuff for us to be talking about and pinpointing where we are in the timeline. And as soon, the day after Trump won the election, became the next president of the United States, they already said we have to secure his third term. So Project 2025 is underway. It's underway, coming to a state near you. On top of that, you've got Canada now. They're putting laws in place, and the U.S. is now studying Canada. They want to make sure that when somebody says you have to go to a mental institution, it's now in the law. You cannot voluntarily say, I don't want to go to the psychiatric ward. They're now forcing you to go. So that's happening, and the U.S. is now studying it to see, in preparation for what we said is coming next year. So there's a lot of stuff on the table, but listen, take heart, take courage, because no matter what you're going through or what you think about it, He is still wonderful. So we're going to go into a time of worship. We're going to absorb this great anthem from Psalmist Say, and then we're going to come back and we're going to dive into the timeline. This is going to be a beautiful episode. It might be short, it might be long. We don't know. It depends on how fast I talk. I can talk really fast. So you got to promise that you're going to keep up, and we're just going to go right into the content and hear what Yahweh is saying. So without further ado, let us
He is still wonderful. Yahweh is wonderful. No matter what we're going through and what we think about it, He is still wonderful. Sometimes in life you feel confused and without zeal. When trials of life that come to discourage you, but even then, He is still wonderful.
Visit saysongs.com for more amazing and inspiring content.
Amen.
Yes, it is still wonderful.
Yes.
What happens is every song is my favorite song until the next one comes out.
Yes.
And that one becomes my favorite song. So right now, this one is at the top of the list. Tell us about this one. Psalmists say, the song in the deep.
Yeah, so this one was written, this is one of the second songs that I wrote, and it was written in August of 2012.
Man.
Yeah,
Wow.
2012.
2012.
August 9th, 2012.
August 9th, 2012. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah, and it's just really an ode to Yahweh, you know, to let him know that he's wonderful and he's amazing and he's everything. You know, we take ourselves so seriously sometimes, and some of us think that we are the cream of the crop, but Yahweh is more than that. You know, in
Amen.
him we live and move and have our being, and
Amen.
he is the ultimate one. He is the awesome one. He is the amazing one. He is truly the wonderful one.
Yes.
So that was
Absolutely.
just an honor to him.
amen. We are so grateful for you sharing your gifts and your talents. Continue to do so in 2025. Man, that's
Yes.
an awesome one. Awesome. Yes. All right.
Don't
well,
forget to subscribe.
That's right. Subscribe. That's right. To Say Song. Look
Yes.
at Joe. Joe is on it. So this evening we're going to be talking about Mammon or MAHANAIM, because these are the two options that you have in 2025.
Yeah.
But before we get into Mammon or MAHANAIM, there's a few things that we have to mention. I have to mention that the Comanids, they celebrated their anniversary.
Yes.
Yes, they've now been married for about 35 years. No, it's about 19, right, Joe?
Yes.
Yes, they've been married for 19 years. And if Joe gets it wrong, then Madam Nicolette, she will correct him.
Oh, yes, she will.
Yes, yeah. So no
She will
dinner
send
for
the
Joe.
post.
That's right. No dinner for Joe if Joe gets that wrong. And then also shout out to the Williams.
Yes.
Yes, I've been married to this beautiful lady for
Side by side.
Side by side, man. Side by side. Wonderful. November belongs to us.
Yes.
That's right.
Been married to this beautiful lady for 17 years.
Amen.
And she has given me the most precious gifts in the world. They are our beautiful children.
Yes.
We've got a giant. We've got
Yes.
a beauty. And they are all amazing. That's what
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
are.
with the
Amazing.
glory.
So,
Yes.
happy anniversary to those at the table.
Amen. Amen.
And just to prove what I'm saying about their beauty, Aaron and Sanaa, they went to the sneaker ball. They had a sneaker ball.
All right now.
Yes. And at the sneaker ball, Sanaa got best dressed, Aaron got runner up. for those
Wonderful.
kicks. Yes, and so we celebrated them. We picked them up. The teachers loved them. They said they're amazing. And I said, yes, I know they're amazing. What do you expect? No, I'm just
Yes.
kidding. I said, yeah, they're
They
amazing.
belong
They're
to
talented,
us.
They're smart. They've had 4.0 GPAs since
Wonderful.
kindergarten.
Yes.
So we're just grateful for you guys. And also, there are times of celebration. There's also time of mourning.
Yes.
The Comanids, they experienced the loss in the family. So condolences
Yes.
to you, brother. We experienced the loss. The Williams family, my Uncle Calvin, he passed. And so that was a very big loss for us. So to his children, Camille, to Vanessa, to Franklin, I say condolences to you once again. Yahweh is still wonderful. No matter
Yes, he's
what
still
we're going through,
wonderful.
What we think about it, he's wonderful.
Yes.
So yeah, we thank Yahweh. All right, so here we are. We're about to jump into some heavy content. Like I said, listen, strap on your seatbelt, because we're gonna be talking fast. We're gonna give you a lot of facts, a lot of information. This is gonna be mostly historical, somewhat with the scriptures involved, so that we can tie everything in together to discover what took place in this last election.
Yes.
So here we are. We're jumping into this section, an unprecedented president. This is where we are right now. We've got an unprecedented president. The question people asked right after the election, I got a few texts on Wednesday morning. Well, actually, went to bed Tuesday night. We went to bed early because we said, whatever happens,
Yes.
we're just going to wake up. We didn't expect to
Find
wake up.
out in the morning.
Find out in the morning. So the question I got asked, did you guys know that Trump was going to win this election? Because it came down to an election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Did you know, leading up to the election, 2024, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Kamala Harris was going to win this election.
Yes.
I knew it
Yes.
up until the Friday of our broadcast. So the all week, Sarah asked, are you doing an in-media section? Because the media section is a lot of
Yes.
work. It takes like
That's
2
right.
days to get that done.
Yes.
Download the videos, cut them up, make sure we get
Yes.
it. So I said, there's no in-media section. We're going to run the timeline.
Yes.
We're just going to present what we know, and then we're going to let Yahweh do what he needs to do.
That's right.
But from a personal standpoint, I was like, okay, I think Kamala Harris has his money in the bag.
Yes.
The Friday morning, we get up, and Yahweh says you have to do an in-media section. I said, in-media section? On a Friday? You expect this to happen? He said, yeah. Run what he called the JD Vance protocol. So we talk about timelines, Joe,
Yes.
Sarah, and myself. We talk about timelines pretty much every week. So, we study this information constantly, and as news cycles run and we see different headlines come in, we plug that into the timeline. So there's this thing that he calls the JD Vance protocol. And so we ran the JD Vance protocol in our in-media section, and that was the only thing we ran. And the last thing I said to Sarah on the broadcast was, Trump will not go quietly into that good night. This is what Yahweh said to me Friday, but I thought it was a joke because he said run the in-media, run the JD Vance protocol just for fun. So I ran it just for fun. I did not expect him to win. So after the broadcast, Sarah said, I thought we were doing it in the media section. I said,
That's
I know
right.
we weren't supposed to, but Yahweh said run the JD Vance protocol just for fun. So she looks at me, she said, what does that mean? I said, I have no clue what it means, but he just said Trump will not go quietly into that good night. She said, what does that mean? I said, well, I guess if he loses, he's going to come back and say he didn't lose, and then it's going to be some kind of chaos. And little did I know, on Wednesday morning, we wake up, I'm rubbing my eyes because I can't believe it. We had the mothers. My mom was here. Sarah's mom was here on Tuesday. We watched the election. We watched the polling. We watched everything. My mother-in-law, when she saw the numbers going up for Trump, she said, I'm going to bed. I said, I said, I'm going to bed too. We're not going to stay up late and watch this because it's not going to be finished. And then we wake up Wednesday morning and we see Trump on the screen as the elect. Sarah said,
Brother was red all over.
all over.
Read all of
All over.
And six states flipped.
6 states flipped. Well, we didn't talk about states
No,
flip
we
because
didn't.
Yahweh didn't show us anything
No.
about states flipping. So, if he doesn't show it, I'm not going to push it.
Right.
I'm not going to make things up. But he didn't talk about that. So here's the timeline that we've been using for the past 5 years now. So we had a system before this, and then we got into studying the times a little bit more in about 2016, 2017, and then we developed this timeline. So we've been using this timeline to chart the course for elections since 2018, I believe. So 2020 was clear, 2024 was clear, 2028 was clear, 2032 was clear based on this timeline. And so, after this, people asked, is your timeline still correct? All right. So how does the timeline work? Just to give you a recap, what happens is the calendars repeat every 28 years. So your calendar today is December 20th of 2024. If you were to go back to December 20th, 1996, it would be a Friday. The stars would be in the same position in the sky. So the timeline literally repeats for everybody, not just the U.S. elections, everybody on a 28-year cycle. There are some personal timelines that have different years, but for a repeat of calendars, the 28-year cycle is the timeline. So we use this information to see what's going on in the world in these 28-year cycles, and everything always lines up the way that it's supposed to. So the question is, can we superimpose this and actually take a look and see what happened in the election and what the timeline actually said? Because Joe asked me, he said, brother, we didn't even go into the graphics of the timeline and whatnot. And I said, we didn't go into it because that really wasn't the focus. We already knew a Mahanaiim was coming in.
Yes.
We were just trying to figure out which one. And the timeline, the timeline had some information on it that we're going to discuss and show you, so that you can begin reading the timeline for yourself. You don't have to wait on us with these broadcasts. But that's what we want. We want everybody to be able to study the Bible, study time for themselves. And that's what Yahweh wants as well. So let's look at the key players for 2024. These are all the people that we talked about all season because these are the major players in 2024. So you have Biden, you have Waltz, you have RFK Jr., Musk, you have McCarthy, you had affirmative action. That's down in that bottom left corner. You've got Taylor Swift and Beyonce, you've got J.D. Vance, you've got Trump, and you've got Harris. So these are the key players of 2024. And everybody's with me so far, right? Scholars,
Yes.
y'all are with me?
Yes.
I know the scholars are with me. Y'all who are watching, you guys are with me, right? Aaron Sana, technical producer, audio engineer, you're with me, right? You're following so far. So those are the key players for 2024. Now, here's the thing. When you look at this timeline, right? What do you notice? You've got 1936, that's Roosevelt. You've got 1964, which is LBJ. You've got 1992, and then you've got 2020. So you see the timeline is jumping every 28 years, and that's what we have laid out before you. Okay. Now, when we look at this is shifting everything forward 4 years. So the elections at the top show you the shift of what's happening 4 years on our timeline forward to match our 2024. So the three years we have up on the screen right now will be 1940. That's Roosevelt again, him and Wallace. Then you have 1968, which is Johnson, and then you have 1996, which is Bill Clinton.
Yes.
Now, if you look at those three elections on this timeline, remember, all we did was we took our 28-year cycles and we moved forward 4 years.
That's right.
If you look at those three elections, the first election is Roosevelt. He's going in for an unprecedented third term.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so does that match our election in 2024? No. Look at Clinton. Clinton is going in for re-election for his second term, he and Al Gore. Does that match our 2024 election?
No.
No. Look at 1968. You've got LBJ, who served as president for his first term. And his polling is so terrible that he decides he's not going to run again, even though he could. And who does he let run for him? He lets his vice president run for him on the ticket. His vice president, his name is Humphrey. And guess who his vice president is? Muskie. So if you look at 1968, you've got LBJ, who steps down after his first term, and he allows his vice president to run for president along with a new person who's going to run as vice president. So when you look at those three elections, just those three, which election makes the most sense for us to compare to 2024?
1968.
1968. That's the election that we have to focus on for 2024. Okay, so everybody's with me so far. So
Yes.
what are the parameters of the 1968 election? Well, first of all, like I said, LBJ's polling is so terrible that people hate being in the Vietnam War in the
Yes.
U.S. There's a lot of protests going on. The world is on fire, just like it is right now. Many countries are experiencing turmoil. And so LBJ says, I'm going to sit this one out. Who are the key players in 1968? And do they match the key players of 2024? Take a look at this. So on your left, you have the 2024 election, the same lineup that I showed you before. Biden at the top, then Waltz, then RFK Jr., Musk, McCarthy, affirmative action. You got Beyonce and Taylor Swift. You got Vance, Trump, and Harris. Now look at election 1968. Look at the top. You've got LBJ. He's got two initials that are identical to Biden. There's a J and a B, and both Biden
That's
and
right.
LBJ.
J and a B.
Next to him is Wallace, and he is the Alabama governor who is a Democrat, but he's running independent. Why? Because of affirmative action. We'll talk about that when I go around the circle. Who's next president in the 1968 election? RFK Sr. So look at that. There's an RFK Jr. in 2024, and there's an RFK Sr. in 1968. Both are running for president the same year. Okay? You've got Muskie, who is the VP, who's going to be running with Humphrey, who's at the top left. And Muskie is identical to Elon Musk. And then you've got McCarthy, you've got MLK, you've got two Neyamas who we'll talk about, Bears and St. Marie. You've got Agnew, you've got Nixon, you've got Humphrey. So you've got Humphrey and you've got Harris. So look at that. There is such a similarity between these two. Just looking at this one graphic. So that should tell you right away that 1968 for sure is the election that you have to compare this election to. And we're going to talk about the results in the election. So, after you watch this, you're going to be like, man, I should have watched this episode. Y'all should have done this episode before the election. And we'll talk about why we didn't do it as well, because we did know a lot of this information before. So what's going on in 1968? So there are three powers that are at play. What three powers are there? There's what you call hippie power, then you have the black power, and you have the left-wing power. All of this is emerging in the 60s. And they're going to become real dominant in the 1970s. So these are the waters of the 1968 election. You also have two assassinations in 1968. The two main assassinations are RFK Sr. He was a Democrat. So RFK Jr.'s dad was assassinated in 1968 as he was running for president. And then you have MLK Jr., of course, Martin Luther King. He was assassinated in 1968.
Was first, and
yes.
then RFK was next.
It was next, correct, because he spoke out in Indiana, right? At a protest, a speech. He was supposed to do a campaign speech in Indiana, and then he went to Indiana after he learned of it, and he actually calmed the waters and calmed the storm, comparing Martin Luther King's assassination to JFK's assassination, his brother who was president and got assassinated. You have two assassination attempts in 2024. Trump himself had two assassination attempts, but then you also had assassination attempt on affirmative action. So this was the election that affirmative action was actually focused on, and they've already had a vote in the Supreme Court in 2023 trying to downgrade the value of affirmative action come 2024. So this is something that is very important for us to look at in 2025, because affirmative action was actually signed, brought to the national stage by JFK, and this was, as most people say, one of the reasons why he was assassinated, because he was really trying to downgrade the power and the influence of a lot of persons who were keeping minorities down, right? And so, there was a lot of racism, there was a lot of oppression and suppression, mentally and socially, and so JFK said we have to do something in this country. So talk to us a little bit about affirmative actions, Sarah.
So all the haters of affirmative action, we now have underqualified doctors, underqualified teachers, lawyers, and economists who are dumbing down the country. And what's the solution? Send them back to their black jobs.
Right. So that's their take on it. They're saying people are underqualified because you're minorities. You can't think. You don't have a brain. So you can never fill these positions.
Right.
You're not supposed to make the 6 and 7 figures. You're supposed to stay in the black jobs.
Like Trump said.
Wow. Send them back to the black jobs. So which is sad. What else do you have going on in 1968? You've got McCarthyism. So in the 1950s, McCarthy, who is Joseph McCarthy, not Joseph. This is bad Joseph. This Joseph is the bad Joseph. Joseph McCarthy in the 50s, he introduced what they call the Red Scare. So everybody in Hollywood were communists, and they were going to destroy the country. So they were going to take down this socialist plague, and they were going to rid the West Coast of all of the commies. Okay, so a lot of Jews were attacked during that time as well. So Walt Disney came under fire because he was a suspected communist, and he was putting this communist doctrine in his movies, the animated movies. So he actually he was actually subpoenaed. He had to appear before Congress to answer questions, and they said that was one of the things that broke him. Well, that was Joseph McCarthy in the 50s. Another McCarthy comes up in 68, and he's running for president as well. He's tied to Hollywood. He has a lot of Hollywood actors. You got Newman, right, who was Paul Newman, who was a part of his campaign trail. So he was not like Joseph McCarthy. This is Eugene McCarthy. So he was much different than Joseph McCarthy. And by the way, those two are not related. And now in 2024, you've got this other McCarthy, Senator McCarthy, who is also from California, and he became Speaker of the House, and then they ousted him just before the RNC in the summer. And so he and Gatz they got into a little spat on the floor. This guy, Kevin McCarthy, he's in a live interview. And Gatz comes behind him, and Gatz is a Florida representative. He's in the House of Representatives. So he said, "Are you speaking of the RNC?" And McCarthy's trying to ignore him. He said, "Are you speaking of the RNC?" And McCarthy's ignoring him on live TV. And he said, "If you speak of this RNC, they're going to boo you off the stage." So there was a lot of chaos happening during that time. Yeah. So, I am so sorry. I covered a lot of the McCarthy information. But you can, yes.
Yeah, so Joseph McCarthy's 1950s era legacy involved a witch hunt, targeting suspected communist in
Yes.
Hollywood, as LeBron said.
Mhm.
His main focus in the 1950s was Walt Disney.
Mhm.
Kevin McCarthy in 2024 used political maneuvers
Mhm.
to shut down liberal policies. His main focus, supporting Governor DeSantis in Florida
Mhm.
against Disney.
Yep.
Their jobs were to amplify cultural fare, and both fell hard. Eugene McCarthy, our 1968 contemporary, had an easier time as he was neither too left nor too right.
Mhm.
The other McCarthys were not fighting for righteousness and truth. The kingdom never suppresses anyone, no matter what their beliefs are.
Mhm.
My sister, that is so true. Even Joshua knew this
Yes.
and gave Israel an option of serving false God.
Hmm.
Now, in Joshua 24, verse 14 says, then Joshua said to the people, now respect Yahweh and serve him faithful and sincerely. Throw away the gods that your ancestors worship on the other side of the Euphrates River. In case you don't know what the Euphrates River is on the other side of Assyria.
Mhm.
Verse 15 it says, but if it is undesirable or evil in your eyes to serve Yahweh, you must choose for yourself today whom you will serve. You can serve the gods that your ancestors worship when they live on the other side of Euphrates River, or you may serve the gods of the Amorites who you live in this land. As for me and my family, my house,
Yes.
we will serve Yahweh. And that is one of Joshua's most powerful things. Matter of fact, that was actually his final speech to Israel.
You're
He
right.
took the time out to actually break it down. And he did exactly what Yahweh does and what Yeshua did. He repeated himself twice. In verse 14, he said, listen, you can serve them on the other side, serve those guys on the land, or you serve Yahweh. Then in verse 15, he repeated, said, but before he even gave them the opportunity to speak, he said, as for me and my family. So that's personal.
Yes.
And we as a family,
Yes.
we worship Yahweh.
Amen.
So we don't
Yes.
expect anybody to ask because Yahweh is the one to be worshipped.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. So yeah, and that's a powerful thing because most people they want to legislate holiness and Christianity. They want to say, okay, this is a Christian nation, so you have to force people to do this. Yahweh never did that. Even when he brought them into the land, he said, "You choose whatever you want to do. As for me and my house,"
Yes.
Joshua said, "we're going to serve Yahweh." And so that is what we say here in the deep
Yes.
as well. Now, what about the Neamas? Because we talked about the Neamas a lot. So we've got two of the Neamas in both eras.
Yes.
We've got Taylor Swift and Beyonce of 2024, and then we've got Buffy Marie Saint Marie and Joanne Baez of 68.
Yeah, I question why out of all the singers you could have chosen, you picked those two.
Mhm.
Then I realized that they were at the forefront of activism in the 60s and are still going strong today.
Yep.
Joan Baez is a folk singer, songwriter, and activist. She sang We Shall Overcome in 1963 with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. You could have also gone with Nina, Aretha, Billy, or Ella, but Buffy St. Marie makes sense because she is an iconic indigenous singer-songwriter and activist. She achieved global acclaim for her pioneering music, Oscar-winning songwriting, winning for Up Where We Belong, and her advocacy for Native American rights. She's a Maharanian.
Absolutely.
However, her race has come into question last year as a documentary was released questioning her Native American heritage.
So you see that you've got Harris being questioned in 2024, and then
Yes.
you've got this Buffy Marie Saint
Buffy
being
Marie,
questioned.
yes.
And so everything happens in cycles and in seasons. You can't
Yeah.
escape it. And then, of course, we just said that you have the RFK Senior,
That's
you have
right.
the RFK Junior,
Yes.
literally
Literally.
running for president in
Yes.
those same years.
Yes.
And so everything's on the timeline so far. But what about Musk? So in 68, you had the vice president.
Must
He was Muskie, right? Edmund Muskie. And then you have Elon Musk. So they have the same initials, almost identical.
Brother, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing, right? So,
Yeah, it's like
right.
LeBron and LeBron.
It's like LeBron and LeBron, right? I like that, yes. So the question is, could we really consider Elon Musk at that level of vice president? Because I mean, after all, he is a foreigner, so he can't have that office. So, but should we really consider him at that same level as Muskie? Well, take a look at this.
The world's richest man, Elon Musk, spent yesterday on Capitol Hill being celebrated by Republicans who gave off the vibe that Musk's budget-slashing, workforce-purging agenda is their agenda. It's going to be the agenda of the new Congress. He walked around Capitol Hill, frankly, like he owned the place. He's been hanging around at Mar-a-Lago, weighing in on hiring decisions, joining a call between Trump and the Ukrainian president for some reason. He's been called co-president by some in Trump world. And today, multiple outlets are reporting the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, recently called Elon Musk in hopes of getting the incoming U.S. administration to reopen talks for the release of hostages in Gaza. You would think that's the sitting president's job, Joe Biden, who's still president of the United States for another month and a half, or if not him, then the incoming president's job, Donald Trump, who was duly elected. Shouldn't be the job of his top campaign donor that no one elected. Maybe Trump doesn't have the actual energy to do the job. Maybe letting Elon Musk basically conduct diplomacy, talk to Hill lawmakers while Trump collects awards from his fans is the division of labor that Trump can handle. What do you make of this figure that we have never really had in the time that I've covered American politics? The richest man in the world with no public role officially, no accountability, not Senate confirmed or anything, running a kind of off-the-book operation in the name of the president he spent $250 million to elect, who has a million conflicts and seems to be like sort of calling the shots.
I had no idea that he would end up with this random position with a new randomly created organization, and now that he would be sitting and doing the diplomacy that really should be left to the president-elect of the United States.
Yeah.
You heard it for yourself. You heard it for yourself.
He saw the power line everywhere with this little child.
Everywhere with this little child. And a little child shall lead them. I guess that's what he's saying. So, yeah, it's pretty clear, Elon Musk. But that's not all. So, as you guys know, they reopened Notre Dame. In 2019, we covered this in the private session. We talked about this. And so we had a great write-up on this and what it meant for the Notre Dame church to burn in 2019 and what it means for it to reemerge in 2025. So, guess what? Who shows up at the Notre Dame opening? You've got Trump, you've got Jill Biden, and Elon Musk. He goes to the opening Notre Dame in Paris. And guess who's not there? Pope Francis. Pope Francis did not go to the opening of Notre Dame. Where was he? He was off somewhere else installing 21 new cardinals coming down to the end of the year. And so what does that mean for the Pope? He brushes Macron off, and he goes and he installs these new cardinals. He also installs the youngest cardinal in the world. He's now the youngest cardinal is 44. His name is Bishop Mykola Bajchuk. So he's the youngest cardinal. And on top of that, this is also 2025. It's a jubilee year for the Catholic Church. I mean, every 2 years they have a jubilee year. I thought a jubilee was 50 years. Every 2 years they have a jubilee year. And in a jubilee year, he opens up 5 doors. You going to say something?
Yeah, it's the young Bishop Mykola. Is he Russian? Where's he from?
So here's where he's from. He's actually from the Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
And he lives in Australia. So he's the bishop. Yeah, there's not a coincidence. He's 44 and Francis is 88. So Bishop Mykola, he is of the eparchy of Saints Peter and Paul in Melbourne for Ukrainian Catholics in Australia, New Zealand, and Oceania. So with this installment, Francis, who is 88, he's elected 80% of the cardinals who will select the next pope for the church, the Catholic Church. So he's got 80% of the cardinals in his pocket to select the new pope or the next pope.
And he's already there with a half the time because this guy is half his age.
He's half his age.
44.
So there's a lot happening at the end of 2024. So people are wondering if he's preparing for his exit. But as I said, they open Jubilee doors. So he's opening up a Jubilee door, and the Jubilee door that he's opening up for the first time, no pope has ever done this, he's opening a prison door. So Pope Francis opening Holy Door, Rebibia prison. So he's going to open that door in 2025 to set the captives free.
Wow.
Or to unleash some kind of demonology in the world. We don't know, but of course, your scholars, your deep scholars, will be here watching to see what happens.
Absolutely.
So you've got Pope, you've got the technocrat Elon Musk, you've got everything happening and coming together at the end of 2024. Now, let's take a look at this again. You've got the 24 players, and now you've got the 1968 players, and everything is happening identical. So you're probably wondering if we knew all of this before the last episode, and we know most of it. So most of it, we looked at this election, we saw it, and did we know that this was going to affect the outcome of the 2024 election? Well, let's look at this is the map we looked at after the 2024 election. That's what the electoral map looked like in 1968, and that's what the electoral map looked like in 2024. So they're nearly identical. The yellow at the bottom, those are the states that George Wallace took. So that's the Southern Democrats who did not want affirmative action. So they said, you guys in the North, they're talking about this affirmative action.
Yes.
You all convinced LBJ, who's from Texas in the South, to acknowledge this affirmative action deal. We don't want any part of it. And many Southern Democrats, that's when they turned Republican in 1968.
Yeah.
And so that's when the Republican Party became the white party, so to speak. And but Wallace, he said, I'm going to run as an independent because I'm not leaving the Democratic Party. They're going to have to kick me out.
Something else.
Yeah, he's a character. But we're not going to talk about Wallace, maybe on another day. So the question is, knowing all of that, why didn't we just say, okay, compare the maps? The president for 1968 was a Republican, Nixon, and he beat LBJ. Why not just say Trump is going to win the election? Well, when the timeline says it's always right, the timeline is always right. But there was a problem with the timeline in this particular election. There were what we found as two discrepancies in the timeline. So that was a major issue. Right?
Yes, my brother, I know.
Yeah.
What the first one is. It is obvious the majority of the key players in 68, McCarthy, RFK, Edmund Muskie, all of them were Democrats.
Yes.
And all of them lost to a former vice president running for president, representing the state of California.
Yeah, that's something because Nixon was from California.
Yes.
So all those guys, they were Democrats and they lost.
That's right.
Okay.
So if Trump brought them to his side in 2024, they should have sunk his ship.
Yes, they should have. They'd have to be watching.
That's right.
Yes.
So even Nixon, who won the election in 1968, is like Biden.
Yes.
He's a vice president for 8 years to Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Then he set out and he came back. Many people thought he was unpopular, but he won the presidency. The only other person to do that in history was Joe Biden.
Exactly.
He was vice president for 8 years.
Yes.
He sat down.
Exactly. So that's what Nixon was, vice president. Yes. Good.
Not only that, but Nixon also was vice president for California, just like Kamala Harris.
Exactly.
And look at the timeline, brother. Bring the graphic one more time as we look at it.
Yeah.
If Clinton and all of them, okay, now, based on this timeline, brother, if they had let Biden run this race in 2024, maybe the Democrat will have won.
Well, I don't think so, because we had to have the MAHANAIM candidate before 2025.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it is clear from the timeline that Biden and Harris are Shamshi Adad the fifth and Samu Lamet.
Yes. All right. So very good. So you've got Nixon, who's from California. He was a former vice president. He sat out and then he ran just like Biden.
That's right.
So he's a lot like Biden. But then he's also a former vice president from California, a senator from California, who now becomes the presidential candidate, and he wins the election in 1968.
That's right.
So it could have been that Harris, who is a VP from California, would be like Nixon to win the election.
That's right.
So that's why we said it was too close to call, and there were too many similarities.
Yes.
So when it's like that, I take the high road and just sit it out and let the timeline play out as the timeline will. Okay? Yeah. So my fellow scholars, while a win for Trump is somewhat from the 20-year cycle, his win destabilizes what we call the master timeline. So you can look at 1968, you can look at 2024, you can say, okay, I see the similarities there, and I understand why Trump wins. But when you compare that to the master timeline that we've been talking about, that's where the next discrepancy is. So let's look at the master timeline, and let's see what we're talking about. Of course, yeah, this goes back to 1776 and 1776. So you got 1776 BC, which is Shamshi Adad the first, and you've got 1776 AD, which is Washington, right? They're both military commanders who take charge of the country. They expand it, and they have leadership in the highest office. And both have a significant testament to what's going to happen in 2025. This means that there must be an emphatic Maharanian president, as Sarah said, in the Oval Office. So you couldn't put Biden there again because that puts Kamala in the VP position again. And the Maharanian candidate has to emerge to become the dominant force.
Before 2025.
Before 2025. All of this has to happen. On top of that, we go back to this idea that the female power from ancient times has been moving from west to east. So we covered this so many times before in Mesopotamia, so we're not going to cover it again today. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a deeper look at what this means, of course, because we've got the Maharanian dance, which is the equivalent to Samuramat and Semiramis. So we want to figure out now for sure. Let's talk about it right now. Who is the true Maharani of 2025? Let's go back to the timeline. Let's go back to ancient Assyria. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at Mesopotamia, the timeline of Mesopotamia. We're going to look at the 1968 timeline, and we're going to compare that to the 2024 timeline so that we can get a clear identification now that the election has already happened on where we go from here.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about the real king wives of Mesopotamia. If you look at that, you have all of these key players. Of course, it begins with Sarah, who mentioned this before, that the Harris and Biden ticket in 2024 parallels Shamshi Adad and Samuramat that ruled Mesopotamia, specifically Assyria, in 824 BC. Yes. We talked about this many times in this season. Yes. But now let's go a bit deeper into this. So if we go back to 28 years from 2024, that's going to take us back to 1996, right?
Yeah.
Who was in power in 1996 in the U.S.? That's Bill Clinton, right? And his wife, Hillary Clinton. His VP is Al Gore. So are there any similarities to that presidency in 1996 and the Mesopotamian timeline? The answer is yes. Clinton served as Attorney General, look at these years, of Arkansas from 1977 to 1979. That's 2 years, right? Then he became governor of Arkansas 1979 to 1981, and then he lost and then he came back again 1983 to 1992. So that's a total of 12 years that he served as the Arkansas governor. Finally, he became president of the United States from 1993 to 2001. That's 8 years in office. So how many years total did Bill Clinton serve his political party? He served for 22 years. All right, the information is right there. And of course, you're always welcome to go and do your research. So he served for 22 years. Now, does this compare to the scriptures? Is there any king in Assyria or in Mesopotamia that ruled for 22 years? Look at this. This says 1 Kings 16:29. It states this: Ahab, son of Omri, king of Israel during Asa's 38th year as king of Judah, and Ahab ruled over Israel in the city of Samaria for 22 years. That's a direct connection between Clinton and Ahab. Both of them served for 22 years. Pay attention, keep following us, because we're going to break this down even further. Now, this scripture also mentions two characters. Who are the two characters? Asa and Omri. Omri would be Ahab's father and Jezebel's father-in-law. Does Clinton have any ties to a political father? His biological father, his dad, died when he was very young, Clinton. His wife hails from the Rodhams, who have been linked to questionable business practices. They even spoofed their mob-like Sopranos connection in an ad for Hillary when she was running for president back in 2008. So what about Asa and his 38-year reign? How does that factor into our timeline from a U.S. timeline standpoint? Well, who was president in 1992 before Clinton became king/president? It would have been George H.W. Bush, or George Bush Sr. He was president before him. So 38 years from 1992 takes you back to 1954 in our modern time, okay? 1954, that's 38 years prior to 1992. Around the same time, H.W. Bush co-founded Zapata Petroleum Corporation, the oil business that made the Bushes billionaires and gave them political power.
Yes, that's amazing because H.W. Bush has been linked to business deals within the oil cartel that culminated with JFK's assassination. There's even evidence that the CIA helped bankroll the family business. The Bush family business.
The Bush family business, exactly. And I want to thank my brother Heston Dean, Pastor Dean, Professor Dean. You know, people like to box musicians into a bubble and they say this is all you're good for, but this man is a scholar, he's a teacher, he's an intellect, and he passes off information and documentaries. He gave me information, this documentary he shared with me. He said, I want you to watch this. And Sarah and I, we watched it. It took us about 3 days to watch it because we watched it in pieces and then we went and we verified the information. It's amazing. It's called JFK to 9/11. Everything is a rich man's trip. So Heston, thank you for that, brother, because that helped clarify a lot of things for us and give us even more insight into this political information. And trust me, I'm going to watch all the stuff that you said to watch because, you know, I trust you. You eat from good sources. So it's good to have people who eat from good sources.
Amen. There is too much information out there for free.
If
you don't know by now, you don't want to know.
Absolutely. Agreed.
So this explains why Hillary got into political after Bill ended his political career. After Bill left the White House, she became the 67th United States Senator in New York for 8 years. Then she was Obama and Biden's Secretary of State for 4 years.
Don't forget, she was the only second female to achieve that position.
That's right.
The first female Secretary of State was Madeleine Albright. And who appointed her? President Bill Clinton.
Wow. So you think Bill Clinton set that up for his wife?
Well, that's no surprise. Remember, she wanted to be president in 2008. And she was about to clinch the nomination. Then Obama got invited to the Bilderberg, where they decide who becomes president even before the election, and she was told to wait.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yep. So, I think he did do that, you know, where to get that position. Yes. And then there's the fiasco that brought her political house down in 2016, before the election, a month before the election. It was called the October surprise. Her connection to Abramovich and sorcery. They said she's a witch. And before you think this is a, you know, Democrats are evil, Republicans are righteous type of study, we don't do that here, as T'Challa would say. We don't do that here. All right, we actually are more aligned with Pope Francis, believe it or not, on this election. What did he say? Because we never talked about what Francis was saying in the background, right?
Well, all we know is that he was installing
he was installing his cardinals. What did Francis say about this election? Opening doors. What did Francis say? He said, and he releases on September 13th, Aaron, our birthday. He says this: Pope Francis called both major U.S. presidential candidates against life and advised Catholic voters to choose the lesser evil when casting their ballots in the November election. Who is the lesser evil? That lady or that gentleman? I don't know. Forcing a child. Read that for me, Sarah.
Yeah. Forcing a child from the mother's womb is an assassination because there is life there, Francis said. Expelling migrants, not letting them develop, not letting them have a life is an ugly thing. It's mean. Everyone in conscience has to choose the lesser of two evils.
Yes, and that came from the BBC. So that's what the Pope said. But he didn't even call him by name. He said that woman or that man.
Yes,
that lady or that gentleman. He said, you know, I'm not even going to call them by name because I'm not interested in this. Why? Because Biden was a Catholic and now you want to get rid of the Catholic presence in the White House. So who knows? So what does it really come down to? This election was about two things. This election was between witchcraft and between Mammonism. So it's between the witch and the warlock. That's what this election was. And both of them, Moloch and Mammon, both of them require child sacrifice, human sacrifice.
And you see Musk walking around with that little child. I'm like, why is he walking around with that child everywhere?
This is what I'm saying. So whether it's Samuramat, whether it's Shamshir Dad, whether it's Democrat or Republican, the story is the same. There's going to be sacrifices, but you as a believer, you better watch out because, you know, they're coming for you. The witches, they serve Moloch. That was their god, the witchcraft. The warlocks, they serve Mammon for the money. And so that's what it really came down to. So Francis said, just choose the lesser evil. Whatever is lesser in your eyes, then that's the one that you choose. That's the one that you choose. So let's go back to this and let's actually put this on a timeline so it makes more sense. So you could see it. You could see 1992 in the U.S. versus Mesopotamia back in the 800s BC. So let's stack them up. You've got on the timeline already. You've got Bill and Hillary Clinton, who are Ahab and Jezebel. Like I said, I'm not saying that they're witches or warlocks. I'm just saying, based on the years in service, these two line up perfectly.
Yes.
Who comes next after Hillary and Bill? Of course, we know who comes next. It's Joe's favorite, the Obamas. All right, so you can consider Obama an outsider for many reasons. Number one, he's connected to the Clintons, though, via Chicago and to the Democratic Party, but he's black. I mean, that's obvious, right?
Yeah.
So he's the first black president. So he's kind of an outsider. Plus, the birth of papers. He's not really born in the continental United States. So for a lot of people, that was a problem. But so from a biblical standpoint, you can consider him two characters on the Mesopotamian timeline. You can consider him Ben-Hadad of Damascus or Aram, and you consider him Joram, right? Because Joram and Ben-Hadad were serving in Mesopotamia around the same time. So Clinton and Hillary and Bill, Ahab, Jezebel, then Obama comes next, Ben-Hadad, Joram.
That will make sense because Joram is the son of Jehoshaphat, the righteous king of Jerusalem. But he gets married to Ahab and Jezebel's daughter, Atalia, and form a political alliance against Assyria. So Obama is Joram.
Yes. And how does the story of Joram end?
Okay, so Yahweh appoints another outsider, Jehu, who wipes out the entire line of Ahab and Jezebel.
Okay.
He's a madman.
Yes,
and
he
doesn't
is.
play by the rules.
Yes.
His job is to drain the swamp and cleanse Israel.
Right.
But here's the catch. He does not complete the task.
Okay.
2 Kings 10 reads, starting at verse 28, So Jehu destroyed Baal worship in Israel, but he did not stop doing the sins Jeroboam son of Nebat had done. Jeroboam had led Israel to sin by worshiping the golden calves at Bethel and Dan. Yahweh said to Jehu, You have done well in obeying what I said was right. You have done to the house of Ahab as I wanted. Because of this, your descendants, as far as your fourth generation, will sit on the throne of Israel.
Oh, now, wait. So now here's the question. And, this is my question, too, when I read it. Do you think that means, based on this scripture, that we have to deal with 3 more generations of Trump? Because that's what we said to Jehu, right? And Jehu, he and Trump are identical.
Right.
So do we have to deal with 3 more generations of Trumps?
No. Sometimes these scriptures are parables.
Okay.
In context, Donald Trump is the 3rd generation of Trumps who have been successful and political in the U.S. His sons and daughters are the 4th generation.
Makes sense. All right, carry on.
Hold on, brother. I'm glad you are clearing these things up because I got a lot of people coming to me saying Donald Trump is for God's choice. Donald Trump is for Jesus. Donald Trump is Christian. And yes, Yahweh allowed him to rule in the past just like he allowed everyone on this planet in any leadership to rule. My question is, should we look to Trump as a political savior?
See, that is where things become deadly.
Yes.
I've seen it for myself as well. There's radical evangelical support for Trump.
Yes.
Bronze, can you please show the video?
Listen, let's show this video. Radical support.
Jim, the president seems to have anointed himself today.
That's certainly right, Brianna. The president sounded as though he had something of a God complex at times today, declaring himself the chosen one and accepting praise from an ally who dubbed Mr. Trump on Twitter as the second coming. Taking his questionable rhetoric to new heights, President Trump talked about himself in biblical terms, at one point looking to the sky as he praised his handling of the economy as godlike.
I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
Who portrayed Mr. Trump in messianic terms, tweeting, "Thank you to Wayne Allen Root for the very nice words. President Trump is the greatest president for Jews and for Israel in the history of the world. And the Jewish people in Israel love him like he's the king of Israel. They love him like he is the second coming of God."
I have been responsible for a lot of great things for Israel.
While in Israel today, President Trump will shift his focus to brokering the ultimate deal, peace between the Israelis and Palestinians.
I think we may all be experiencing something that the Jews experienced about 3,300 years ago. There has been some comments about 4 years of the president's term being the only president that has had 4 years of peace.
Have you spoken to him since the assassination attempt?
I didn't used to believe in miracles, Paul, but after what happened on that day, I think now I do.
There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that.
How appropriate it is tonight that we see all kinds of people, religious, not religious, Jews, not Jews, come together and we honor our President Trump for what he has done for Jerusalem and for the Jewish people. And he'll be awarded tonight with the Keter of Jerusalem Award, which he very much deserves, sending out a message to the entire world, knowing that Jerusalem is a place that has to be secure for Jews, and we should very soon, we will all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem very soon.
Wow, wow. Brother, have you seen what they put out there? Prince of Peace. That is absolutely madness.
Yeah, you know when they say peace and safety.
That is absolutely madness.
Yeah.
Donald Trump. Prince of Peace.
Prince of Peace. He's the chosen one.
Yeah, you can't talk about the radical left without also acknowledging the radical right.
Yeah.
So the Bible isn't finished. It continues in the scripture and it says, "But Jehu was not careful to follow the teachings of Yahweh, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He did not stop doing the same sins Jeroboam had done, by which he had led Israel to sin." Jehu is appointed, but he is not anointed. At that time, Yahweh began to make Israel smaller. Hazael defeated the Israelites in all the land of Israel, taking all the land east of the Jordan, known as the land of Gilead. It was the region of Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh.
So when Yahweh begins judging, it starts in the east, specifically with Manasseh.
Yep. So, and you know, we talked about Manasseh already.
Yes.
So look at that, pay attention, because as Yahweh begins to
14
judge,
tribe.
yeah, he starts in the east, and he starts with the tribe of Manasseh. We already talked about the link between America and Manasseh already.
Yes.
And it's always connected to 666, so Syria, Israel, the mark of the beast, and you know what else, right, Sarah?
Yeah, Manasseh is always tied to economy and Mammon.
Bingo.
You're likely wondering, is there a Jehu-Assyria connection? Yes. Have you ever heard of the black obelisk of Shalmaneser the third? It is believed to show 5 Israeli kings bowing before and showing reverence by both posture and financial tribute to the kings of Assyria.
So Jehu, the savior who was supposed to bring down Jezebel, turns right around the corner and serves Assyria.
Yes. 2 Kings 10 ends with this. Jehu reigned over Israel and Samaria for 28 years.
Here we go again. So is Trump going to be around for 28 political years?
There are 3 ways to look at this.
Okay.
1, this is an endorsement of our 28-year cycle.
Okay.
2, if you go back 28 years from 2015, the year Trump announced he would be running for president, you come to the year 1987.
Okay.
He released his first book, Art of the Deal. 28 years from his becoming president is 1988. The first time he endorses a Republican candidate and becomes a Republican himself.
Right.
Who does he endorse? George H.W. Bush.
Okay.
If you go back 28 years from the end of his first presidency, George Bush's in 1992, he criticizes Bush Sr. and the economy. He even commissioned a poll to gauge his viability to run for president. So that would be what? 28 years from the end of Trump's first presidency will be, of course, 1992 from 2020. He even commissioned a poll to gauge his viability to run for president. And now 28 years from 2024 is 1996. Trump continues to toy with the idea of running for president and suggests he may run in 2000. Of course, that task fell to George Bush Jr. That's two ways to look at the 28.
So that answers your question so far, the 28.
Yes, the 28.
The third way is 28 days later, which we talked about in our in-media section this season.
That's right.
And 28 years later, which we'll talk about this episode in our in-media segment.
Yes.
So far, the Mesopotamian timeline is in sync with the U.S. political timeline. Where do Biden and Harris fit in it?
That's a good question. That's exactly where we are right now. Many people have that same question. Is Biden and Harris, are they on the timeline? So after Jehu begins paying tribute to Assyria, which is Shalmaneser, right? The third.
Yes.
Would you believe that the next couple to reign in Assyria while Jehu is still alive are Shamshi-Adad V and Samuramat?
Yeah, so that means Jehu would have paid tribute to Shamshi-Adad V and Samuramat.
You got it.
Well, brother, I don't see any conflict between the two timelines yet.
All right. Well, here it is. These are the two reasons, really, main reasons why we weren't hasty in declaring that Trump was going to win the election, even though in 1968 everything lined up perfectly and we saw Nixon was a Republican become the president.
Yes.
These are the reasons right here. Let's just remind everybody, 1968, 2024, Trump goes and he brings over all of the Democrats who lost.
Yes.
RFK Sr. lost in 68. Muskie lost. McCarthy lost. They were all Democrats. They lost. Trump brings them over to his team in 2024. RFK Jr., Musk, and McCarthy. And Trump wins. So, and then here's the next one.
And they are Republican.
And they're Republican. So that's a major conflict on the timeline.
Major conflicts, yes.
But this is the one. This is the main one right here.
All right.
Hold on. Before we do that, I think we need to jump to in media. That's what we're going to do. So let's jump to in media, and then I'm going to share with you the next conflict, because this goes back to 2020, a personal experience that I had. So let's jump into in media. And I know you're surprised. You're like, you guys are going to do in media in the middle of the episode?
Yes,
we will. We're going to do in media right in the middle of the episode because we have to include the media to see what the media is saying to us.
Listen, we have to clear all the discrepancies.
We have to clear all the discrepancies.
And
so
make sure that everything is lining up.
Right, because right now it looks like there's a 68.
Yes.
No real conflict or discrepancy. And then there's a 2024 no discrepancy with the Mesopotamian timeline.
That's right.
Going forward. So let's jump to in media. Of course, before we begin, all of the films that we're about to show you, you're going to want to watch, but you're going to want to watch them with VidAngel.
Yes.
Because, things are getting terrible out there. So let's talk to...
I don't know if you know this, but us dogs love to cuss. That's nasty, Frank, you filthy animal. But my humans don't like swearing. That's why they subscribe to VidAngel. It's a filtering service that lets you take out nasty language and whatever else you don't want to see or hear in your favorite shows. You should have seen our family movie nights before we had VidAngel.
The last time, you piece of...
Wait, where's the remote?
I'm gonna get you.
It's PG-13.
I got it.
I can't wait to say that at school tomorrow.
He takes after me. VidAngel has detailed filters. You can mute the words that hurt your ears and skip the scenes that hurt your eyes.
S words? No. Fight scene? Yeah. Woman strokes naked man's chest? No, thank you.
VidAngel connects to your favorite streaming services, so there's plenty to see, and you never see too much. So get VidAngel and put swears on a leash. VidAngel. Watch more, worry less.
Sign up today at vidangel.com using the promo code DEEPDIVE and get 2 weeks free, courtesy of your favorite scholars over at the Deep Ecclesia.
VidAngel, get VidAngel.
Yes.
All right. So, Joe, you said there's no discrepancy so far. You see the first one with all those Republicans.
Yes.
Democrats becoming Republicans.
Yes.
And Trump brings them over. It doesn't sink his ship. It actually propels him, right?
Yes.
To victory. Now he's got Elon Musk walking around like a vice
That's
president. Right. So here's the thing. We know in the Mesopotamian timeline.
And then, of course, we have Musk and Muskie.
Muskie.
Vice president, co-presidents.
There you go. So it's the same thing. Now, on the Mesopotamian timeline,
Just
of course,
a synonym.
Just a synonym. Same thing, though. Different animal, same beast. The Chloe system, you're welcome. So, on the Mesopotamian timeline and on the U.S. timeline, you have the same characters running. You've got Ahab and Jezebel, you've got Clinton, and you've got the Clintons, right? Ahab and Jezebel. Then you've got Obama and you've got Joram. Then you've got Jehu and you've got Trump.
That's right.
What's supposed to happen next? You're supposed to have Samuramat and Shamshi-Adad.
Yes.
Shamshi-Adad is supposed to rule for 3.5 days, and then Samuramat comes and she becomes the queen.
Yes.
Right? But now we've got a conflict because it seems like there's something going on with the timeline. It looks like you're going back to Jehu.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. How could you go Samuramat and then backward to Jehu? You know,
Backward.
If you skip Samuramat, as you off the timeline now, how does this work? So let's go back to 2020. This is a personal experience that I had in 2020. So I'm sitting down in 2020 and I end up in this vision. It was so strange. I'm in 2020. I am watching myself in 2022, watching myself in 2024. So picture that. I'm in 2020.
Yes.
Watching myself in 2022, watching myself in 2024.
All right.
So what's happening with me in 2020? In 2020, I am trying to figure out what's going on in these two visions. Because in 2022, I see myself having a conversation with Yeshua and with the Holy Spirit. So we're in a conversation. The Father is not in this conversation. We're in the throne room. I've been in this room twice, maybe. You know, a lot of people talk about how they visit heaven and they get to go around and walk around and see all these great things. I remember one time we were listening to this prophetess. She said that she went to heaven, and she said, you wouldn't believe it. She said, I went to heaven, and there was an entire town called Christmas Town. There were Christmas trees everywhere and lights. And I said, wow, that's an amazing part of heaven. I would have never imagined. So you have these people who go to heaven, and they spend hours there. This thing was like 20 seconds for me. And that was the second and last time that I saw anything in that room. So I'm in the court, in the throne room. The Father's sitting on the throne. I'm off to the side. Yeshua and the Holy Spirit, they're trying to explain something to me. Because I'm looking at myself in 2024. And in 2024, I am confused.
Yes.
In 2020, I'm watching myself, as I said, in 2022, having this conversation. Because in 2024, I'm confused about what's going on. In 2022, they're trying to help me so that by 2024, I'm not confused. But they're giving me the option to get all the information in 2020. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm listening to everything that's happening. They start to try to explain what's going on in 2024, and they're doing it in movie form. So I'm not even a part of the conversation. Yeshua and the Holy Spirit, they're having a conversation by themselves. And they're like, well, tell them it's like this movie. And Yeshua's like, no, but it's not really like that. And then Yeshua's like, but it's like this movie. And he's like, no, it's not like that one. And so they're trying to figure out which movie it is that they're going to tell me so that they can help me understand in 2022 so I'm not confused in 2024. So I come out of this, and guess what? They don't tell me what the movie is. So I'm sitting down in 2020 confused because I'm saying, why would I see this but have no results to help me so that by 2022 I can be well informed so that 2024 does not confuse me. And what ends up happening is I tell Sarah about it, and Sarah's like, well, you don't have an idea what the movie is? I said, no, I have no idea what the movie is. There were no clues. They didn't even talk about characters. There were no titles. I didn't even really hear what they said because they weren't talking to me. They were talking amongst themselves before they could even come to me. So we're sitting down one day, maybe 3-4 weeks later, and we're sitting down, and this ad comes on the TV. When the ad comes on the TV, the Holy Spirit says to me, that's the movie. And when I saw the trailer and I watched the ad, I ran his eyes at Sarah. I found out what the movie is. I said, it's a movie that I have not even seen yet. I said, so when this comes out, we have to see the movie. Wow. I'm going to play the trailer right now, and then I'm going to give you the breakdown on what it means. So take a look.
We all believe we'd run into the burning building. But until we feel that heat, we can never know. You do. You chose to die instead of giving up your colleagues. Welcome to the afterlife.
to do what I do, I need some idea of the threat we face.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
Nuclear holocaust.
No. Something worse.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too.
You have to start looking at the world in a new way.
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
What'll happen here? Hasn't happened yet.
Wow. Wow, indeed. So do you remember that, Sarah?
Oh, yeah.
So I watched the trailer like 20 times before the movie came out. I'm hungry, Joe. And
Yes, I can imagine.
2020. This is 2020. And so what happened was they played the trailer and then they closed the theaters. And Christopher Nolan, who is the director of the film is called Tenet. Christopher Nolan decides he's going to pull it because everybody was taking their movies and putting them on digital. So they were putting them on Netflix and Disney and all that. Christopher Nolan said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm putting my movie in the theater."
Because it was during COVID.
It was during
just
COVID,
had started,
yes.
so he didn't want a chance losing money.
Correct. So he kept pushing the release date back, and I am getting furious at this point because I'm like, I have to see this movie. You don't understand, Christopher Nolan. This is something that's personal to me. I need to figure out what's going on. But his catalog is tremendous from a directing standpoint. He started off as a cinematographer, and then he just started directing his own films. But when he first started doing the films, he would do everything by himself. He'd do all the audio, he'd do all the video, he'd do all the editing, and then as he got into Hollywood, he had to start hiring people so he could do movies. So, he did the Batman trilogy, he did Insomnia, he did Memento, he did The Following, and then he moved into other movies like Inception, which was another interesting one. Then there was Interstellar, Dunkirk, and then Tenet came, and then Oppenheimer was after that.
Which was the best picture of the year this year.
Correct. Oppenheimer, yes. Yeah, so that's Christopher Nolan's films. So that was the trailer for Tenet. So when I saw that trailer, Yahweh was like, this is the movie. So what is Tenet and what does it mean? Tenet explains what's happening in 2024 because we use this principle for all of our teaching in 2024. So in 2023, when we discovered Assyria in 2025, we use that as the breaking point for everything that we've taught. So we've been using this Tenet principle without even explaining where the theory comes from. And so what happens in Tenet is things move backward in time and things move forward in time at the same time, which is what we talked about in 1776 BC and 1776 AD. So we've been teaching this to you without explaining the source, but now we're going to give you the source so that you can go and watch Tenet, and then you can say, okay, now Holy Spirit, I watched it. Explain it to me. You have to watch it like maybe 6, 7, 8 times because it is very confusing. But there's a lot of information in it, decoded in it. So what they use is they call it a pincer movement. And what a pincer movement is in Tenet is, like I said, something moves forward, something moves backward in time. And that's exactly what's happening with the timeline in 2024. We're doing pincer movements where something is moving forward, but if you look back into the past, you'll see it moving backward at the same time. So I'm going to play an explainer video for it. It's just a quick scene from the movie where they explain, because you saw in the trailer how the car was flipping backward and then it just rested. And they were looking like, how did that happen? Was that, that scene, did that happen in reverse while we were moving forward in time? And yes, that's exactly what was happening in the entire movie. So take a look at this explainer right.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
Nuclear holocaust.
No. Something worse. Aim it and pull the trigger.
It's empty.
Aim it. Check the magazine.
How?
One of these bullets is like us, traveling forwards through time. The other one's going backwards. Can you tell which is which? How about now? It's inverted. Its entropy runs backwards, so to our eyes its movement is reversed. We think it's a type of inverse radiation triggered by nuclear fission. Try it. You have to have dropped it.
How can it move before I touch it?
From your point of view, you caught it, but from the bullet's point of view, you dropped it.
But cause comes before effect.
No, that's just the way we see time.
Well, what about free will?
That bullet wouldn't have moved if you hadn't put your hand there. Either way we run the tape, you made it happen. Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
Instinct.
So now back in 2020, and look what she said. She said, don't try to understand it, just feel it. And that's how a lot of things are with Yahweh. Is sometimes you're not going to understand the full picture of it, but you just have to trust him that he is going to reveal himself and reveal what's supposed to happen in time. So we Sarah and I, we watched it maybe 5 times. After the 5th time, I was just starting to understand it. The movie's confusing just like that scene that you saw. So if you didn't understand it, don't worry. The entire movie will confuse you even more. But the more you watch it and delve deeper into the story, the more it explains itself, because it's a biblical principle that they've packaged in there for you to understand certain things. And I wish that Yahweh would allow some kingdom citizens to put some secrets into some films, so that believers could get those secrets and garner those secrets. I'm tired of listening to these guys and their rhetoric, because they always pollute what Yahweh is saying.
But brother, you cannot help it, because that's what Joel 2:28 said.
Yeah.
Pour out his spirit unto all flesh.
Which is true, yes. So that's
all
a great
flesh.
way to look at it. And
he didn't say only believers, he said all flesh.
That's right, all flesh. So in 2020, of course, there were a lot of us teaching back in 2020. So on our break, at the end of the year, I said, listen, I explained the dream to them, and I said, I want you guys to watch this movie.
Yes.
Because we have to have more eyes on this to understand what's going on from the timeline. Because after I watched it, I had no clue what this meant for 2024. I do now. But back then, I had no understanding of what it meant. And I really had to study that in the Bible to kind of add things up. So Joe was there. There were a couple of people who was there. Our good buddy Mike was there. Corey was there. You know, so we all sat down, we watched it. And I think that the most of us walked away confused as what does this movie really mean. But as time moved on and we started to have Yahweh unfold the timeline, much more was explained to us. And so we were able to now garner a lot of things from that. So when you look at the 28-year cycle, going back to this cycle now, because this is a part of the tenant. Previously, you were able to look back at previous elections on the 28-year cycle and match up future elections to past elections based on the key players, as we just looked at the key players. It's obvious when you were able to do that. So now, based on the timeline that we have now, look at this timeline now. This is horrendous timeline. I'm trying to get my graphic. Where is that going? Something is up with that's not supposed to be up. Where is that? Excuse me just one second. Yeah. All right, so previously we were able to look back at previous elections, and that's the graphic that I want to read there. So we were able to look at those elections and line it up, and everything flowed smoothly,
That's right.
But where we are now, once we introduce this new level of elections, now we're in the what we call the tenant phase of elections. And when you're in the tenant phase of elections, things start to move forward and backward in time. And you have to know what Yahweh is saying so that you can understand it. And this is the second discrepancy, Joe.
That's right.
So now you have a visual representation of what the discrepancy looks like. You go from Trump to Biden to Harris, which is Jehu, Shamshi-Adad V, Samuramat, and then you hit a brick wall, and you end up back at Trump, which is 2016, in 2025. Now, biblically, that doesn't make sense. Because biblically, you're supposed to move from Jehu, Shamshi-Adad, Samuramat, and then Adad Merari III. And so, with us going back to Trump, who is Jehu, we are moving backward in time, which is what Yahweh said would happen to me in 2024. So we're in the tenant phase of our timeline with Jehu. And that's why I say we are in an unprecedented president. That's what we have right now, because the timeline is moving backward. Well, what's to come when you start moving like that in the timeline? In the future, when you look at elections, you have to now pay attention not only to the 28-year timeline. I'm doing this because a lot of you, I'm hoping that this inspires you to start looking at elections on the timeline that we've given you. When you start looking at these elections, you can no longer look at the 28-year cycle alone. That's not going to be enough for you to help you. You now also have to analyze 4 years before the election and 4 years after the election. So if this is the election 2016, you'd have to go back to 2012. And you have to go forward to 2020. And you have to look at all the key players in those 3 elections to now help you narrow down what's happening in the 2016 election. That's how complicated. I mean, it's not complicated. It takes work. I mean, it takes us a long time to study. This isn't something that you do for 2 or 3 minutes. This is something that you dedicate your life to. And you have spare time on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You say, listen, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to spend 2 hours studying this election. This is what you do. So not only that, but you have to rewind for Jehu because elections are now moving forward and backward through time. What does that mean? Does that mean, look at this again. Does that mean that based on this, does that mean that instead of going from Harris to Adad Merari III, does that mean we're going to go back to Trump and then back to Obama and Hillary and then back to Obama and then back to Hillary and then back to Bill? Does that mean that Michelle is going to be running in 2028 to represent the Obama cycle? Let's go forward to November 7th, 2028. So let's see how this works. Let's put this into practice right now. We're not going to wait until 2028,
That's right.
October 2028, to do our Deep Dive Live episode before the election. We're going to do that episode right now in theory, just to show you how it works, give you some motivation so that when you begin studying over the next 3 years, you can start lining things up. So let's move forward in time, 4 years in time. Let's go forward to November 7th, 2028, and let's see what can happen. Now, if we were on the normal election cycle or the normal timeline, we would look at the U.S. elections from 2000, from 1972, and from 1944. Those would be the elections that we would be looking at, right, to move forward on this election timeline for 2028. However, since 2024 perfectly matched 1968, the next election cycle, election 2028, has to move backward in time. So what does that mean? Before 2024, if Biden had stayed in, he would have been just like Clinton in 1996, right? Running for the second term.
Mm-hmm.
However, Kamala Harris jumped in, took the ticket, and now that matched 1968. So that means we cannot look at the 1996 election anymore.
Right.
Now, when we go to 2028, you can't look at the 1968 election anymore. You have to go backward in time, which will take us to the 1944 cycle.
So that would be 28 years back.
That would be 28 years back from 1968.
Yes.
So, what are the circumstances in 1944? Because remember now, prophetically, we're in 2028. We're looking at the 2028 timeline to see what happened in 1944 to see if this is going to match what we can expect in 2028. All right? What happened in 1944? FDR is the Democratic president heading into his fourth term. He edged out Dewey, who is a New York Republican, DA, and governor who took on the 1940s mafia like Dutch Schultz. And fun fact, Dewey was a top Republican who helped Eisenhower and Nixon become president. So he was connected to the 1968 election as well. He was also the presidential candidate born, the first one born in the 20th century. And he was the youngest ever Republican presidential nominee, which is 42. He was the youngest one. His running mate was from Ohio. So do you hear that? You have
Yes.
one from New York. His running mate is from Ohio. Globally, the world was knee-deep in World War II. There again, we see a New York, Ohio running mate connection, just like Trump and J.D. Vance.
Yep.
All right? Therefore, since if the timeline holds true, by 2028, you can anticipate the world being involved in World War III. So if we match our 1944 timeline to the 2828 timeline, you can expect that within the next 4 years, we're going to be full-blown in the as they call it, trenches of World War III. That's what you could expect in the next 4 years. So, but wait, remember what happens once the MAHANAIM debuts in 2024. So we talked about that in our last episode. In 2025, we moved into the halftime sequence of the timeline. Remember that 2025, yes, moves us into the halftime. So there it is right there. You have the time, the times, and then the dividing of time. So once 2025 hits, we are in the halftime. So based on that information, when can you expect us to be knee-deep in World War III? It's not going to be 2028 anymore because that's 4 years from now. You have to divide that in half. So now you can expect it by 2026. So when Yahweh said run the J.D. Vance protocol just for fun, and it was talking about civil war and all of this unrest, civil unrest in America, I thought he was sparing us from that. But according to this timeline, this is what we can expect within the next 2 to 3 years. So you have to be very vigilant in this time. So by 2026, it could even start in 2025. We can expect that, okay? So you might say, listen, LeBron's, okay, I get it. The timeline is correct.
Yes.
I don't like the 1944 timeline. Can we jump back to 28 years before that so we could kind of skip that one? Because that's World War II. How about we go to a peaceful time? You know, Donald Trump is the president of peace,
That's
the prince
right.
of peace.
Yeah,
how about we talk about the 28 years before that? Well, let's go back 28 years before 1944. Where does that take us? That takes us to the 1916 election. And who's the president in 1916? It's a Democrat again. From New Jersey is Woodrow Wilson. His vice president is Marshall from Indiana. He beats the Republican Hughes from New York and Fairbanks from Indiana. He was elected on November 7th, 1916. He was up against Charles Evan Hughes, who's a Republican Supreme Court justice turned presidential candidate. He's the only Supreme Court justice to become a presidential candidate. So can we expect that in the 2028 election? You know, Trump stacked the Supreme Court with a lot of his cronies. So could we expect one of the three running in 2028? Who knows? We'll keep watching. Remember now, Congress turns 120 in 2027. So it's not far-fetched. And then also, both of these Republicans are named Charles. So you can probably suspect that there's going to be some candidate who's going to be connected to Charles or Charlie or whatever it is in 2028. We don't know yet. It's still too far, but hey, we're in the prophetic mode. So let's stick with what Yahweh is showing us and pull all the information we can. Guess what? In 2024, you also had two candidates with the same name. Who are the two candidates with the same name? Donald. You have Donald J. Trump and J.D. Vance. His original name was James Donald Bowen.
That's right.
All right. And then he became James David Vance. And by the way, Tenet, it features the lead actor, John David Washington, who is another J.D.
Right.
Okay, so these J.D.s are running rampant in 2024. So what was the world like in 1916? Because this is another option, right? You say you didn't want the World War II. Sorry, you wanted to go to 1944, right? What was the world like in 1916? In 1916, the world was knee deep in World War One.
Aye.
So you want to go
can't
back?
escape it.
You want to go back 28 years, right? So we went back 28 years. The world was knee deep, and these are all on the 2028 timeline.
Yes.
So that means if you go back to you can't go to 1968. By the way, in 1968 we were in Vietnam War, so that was another war.
Yeah.
So you go back to 1944, you're in World War II. If you go back to 1916, you're in World War I, right? Now this is unsettling because my position is, if Yahweh says run the J.D. Vance protocol, he told us in the beginning this election was not about Donald Trump and it was not about Joe Biden. It was about the MAHANAIM candidate, which means that I don't even think that Trump is going to last for the four years. So J.D. Vance has to be, if he and Usher Vance are going to be the MAHANAIM presidents, he has to become president as the movie Civil War suggested. So he's going to be the one who's going to be spearheading all of these global war campaigns, according to the timeline. So, is he prepared to navigate the U.S. through World War III? What's going on with that? Because he's going to be the one handling all of the affairs. Well, here's the thing. Many people don't know that David designed and funded the Holy Temple project when he anointed Solomon as his replacement, even though other favorite sons of David were vying for the throne. So remember, JD's name is David, Donald Trump's name is John, but guess what? They've already anointed him as the priest, the second coming, so he's like the chief Messiah, and JD Vance would be the surrogate Messiah.
Yes.
So in my mind, I'm equating what Donald Trump is doing right now to what King David did for his son Solomon.
And the Jewish guy who was speaking, the gentleman, he had said that he had nodded as though he's the king of Israel.
And he said,
Prince of Peace.
the Prince of Peace, and because Trump is in power, we're going to be getting our third temple.
The only thing he didn't say was the root of David.
The only thing he didn't say was the root of David, but we've got it. So you had other sons who were of David's line who were vying for the throne. Mm-hmm. All right, so David, he did Solomon, and it's still in media, right? Isn't that wonderful? It's still in media. So David, he did Solomon a solid after stating all of the construction items he arranged for the temple building in 1 Chronicles 29. It tells us what David did personally for the building of the temple. So, Sarah, help us with that, please. I'll get the graphics.
Yes, so 1 Chronicles 29, beginning at verse 3 says, I have already given this for the temple.
Yes.
David said, but because of my devotion to the temple of my God Yahweh, I am also giving my own treasures of gold and silver. I am giving about 220,000 pounds of gold from Ophir and about 520,000 pounds of pure silver.
Excellent. Now, Sarah, you're our resident accountant, so do me a favor. How much money are we talking here that came from, because this is his personal money now. This isn't money from, from the temple. This isn't money from, the collector's basket. This isn't the national economy. He said he left from his personal bank account. He went to Chase. He said, listen, I'm doing a withdrawal. This is what I'm putting in from my personal account. Tell us, Sarah, how much money is this?
Yeah, so King David's offering would be considered a whopper of an offering today in 2024. The value of 220,000 pounds of gold equals $6.86 billion today.
Wow. Whoa.
Additionally, the value of 520,000 pounds of silver equals $199.68 million today. The combined value of 220,000 pounds of gold from Ophir and 520,000 pounds of pure silver in 2024 would be approximately $7.06 billion.
Wow. Look at that. That's how much David put in for the building of the temple. What is Trump doing right now in 2024, preparing for the 2025 inauguration? He's putting together his cabinet. And Trump has now elected the wealthiest cabinet in U.S. history.
Wow.
How many, first of all, I don't think they had more than 2 billionaires, if they had any, serve on any previous cabinet. Trump has elected 13 billionaires to serve on his cabinet. Wow. Now, here's the thing. So when Sarah said 7.06 billion, you get 7 plus 6, that gives you 13. So he's chosen 13 billionaires, and David put together 13 connected to his billionaire status. So, Joe, here comes the most important questions from David. What did David ask next in this temple building project? What was his next request?
Now, who is ready to give himself in a consecration of service by lifting his hands to Yahweh?
All right, so who is ready to give himself in consecration of service by lifting his hand to Yahweh?
Yes.
So, Joe, help us understand, what does this term mean when David asked that question? Who is ready to consecrate themselves by lifting their hand to Yahweh?
Well, what David actually was trying to say in that very moment, it took the time out to actually let everybody to personally comes in and then give a free will offering. In other words, that's a free will, a way of worshiping.
Wow.
In other words, it's not what you're gonna give during the feast or any other feast or what you're gonna bring for your family, but this is a personal free-willing offering. So he asked everybody, who is ready to join me?
Wow.
By worshiping Yahweh freely.
Wow.
And of course, we know what happened. Is all of his leaders, they came in and their free will gave out of their own abundance. So just like you say, you went to Chase and withdraw 7 billion. Maybe they probably didn't have 7 billion, but I know they came with 7 million.
Right.
And each one of them free will gave for the cause of Yahweh.
Man, this is amazing, man. And this is what David did for this project. So Trump has done something, as I said, no other president has done.
Yes.
This guy has brought in the wealthiest of the wealthy. And this is what his cabinet looks like. So I wanted to give you a clear understanding. These are billionaires aplenty. These guys are worth $450 billion. And there you see your good buddy Elon Musk down there in the corner. He's right there, the co-president of the United States of America.
It's amazing. They only worth $450 billion, but David alone gave 7.06 billion.
That's right.
34.50 billion. He surpassed them like
That's
this.
right. Yes, he
Way
did.
beyond.
Yes, he did. Now the question is, has this been done before? What was the average value of previous administrations' cabinets? The average value was 150 million. That was the average net worth.
Wow.
So Trump has amassed the billion. Now the question is, he said he's going to be the president for the working class, the middle class. When you look at this cabinet, does this look like a working class cabinet for you that's going to be out for your best interests? You know, and the question is, would the Democrats put together a cabinet that was going to be out for your best interests? You better subscribe to the cabinet of Yahweh, because that's the only cabinet that is interested in you.
Yes.
That's the only one. Yes. That's the only one
that has the best interest at heart.
So after looking at all of this, what I'm seeing the connection between David and between Trump is David was doing this to secure the legacy for his son Solomon.
That's right.
Trump is now securing Elon Musk by hedging him with these billionaires who are going to help him shape America. Yes, you want to see that graphic again?
Yeah, I think that we may be stuck.
Oh.
Yeah.
We're stuck?
Yeah, we're not moving. So I'm on the live stream.
Oh, you are so right. Yeah.
But it moved. When you put it on again, it moved. So
yeah.
It's just
Well, what's going on? What's going on with
they
that
can
video?
hear us? Yeah. Screen is frozen.
Screen is frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Devil is a liar.
Yes, he is.
Can you all hear us still?
Yes, we can hear you.
This is season finale.
It's season finale.
Yeah, so everything is going up. Like when you put the media up, it's going up, but it's just we're not moving.
All right, so now
I assume they can hear us.
So the camera's still moving. You can see it moving on the camera, right? Yeah, but they can't see us.
It's moving on the camera, but it's frozen on you.
All right, so let me try something right quick.
We apologize.
Yes, we do.
That's all right. We're talking. We're dealing with Mammon. What do you expect?
I tell you.
When you begin to expose Mammon, what do you think he's gonna do to you?
Nicolette said the hearing is on point, and Shanika said she can hear.
Amen.
Okay, hearing is on point.
Just a picture.
Okay, picture.
So let's try.
Yes, Mammon said, "Listen, I will strike back." But Mammon has been defeated.
Mammon,
yes,
every time.
Being defeated in the name of Yahweh.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can take video.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent world.
Still frozen. Okay. All right. The only other thing I think we can do is
Coming on us that it's just we are frozen.
right. We are frozen. How did that happen?
That's Mammon.
That's Mammon.
But Mammon is being defeated.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
The only thing I can suggest maybe is us restarting the broadcast.
Or maybe continuing on. You don't want the image like that, huh?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent world.
Technical difficulties.
Yes.
But Yahweh is still on the throne.
Amen.
Are we gonna restart?
Yes, I think we're gonna restart, guys, and we're gonna come right back in.
Do not go anywhere. We're taking a.
Yes, don't do it.
Keep talking. We're with you.
Yes,
All
we're
right,
taking a
all
commercial
right.
break.